Hey guys, thanks for clicking on this video. Today we're looking at GameStop, but we're going to go through some news that came out to do with the chairman of the US Fed, Jerome Powell, showing that he only has his best interests in mind and obviously not the interests of the American people and the economy. So let's have a look at GameStop's price today before we get into that. You can see GameStop is down 1.17%, $189.95. If we just go to the daily chart, it started the day pretty strong and then dropped immediately. It was almost at $200 in the pre-market and it's been going down all day. Even hit lows of 186, but is currently at 189 and is actually down a little bit in the post-market to 189.70. So not looking too bad. If we just zoom out a little bit, not as low as it was yesterday, but some pretty big days they've been. The last 2 days have been pretty big for GameStop, but also for the entire market in general. Just looking at the reverse repo number, we actually have hit a all-time high, 1.240 trillion. So that is the highest it has ever been, beating the previous record, which was yesterday, of 1.224 trillion. So can you give a like on the video for that? Because that is really good news for GameStop, the MOAS, and everything in between. So let's head on to this article. This is by CNBC. Fed Chief Powell and other officials own securities central bank bought during COVID pandemic. So the Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell has ordered review of the ethics rules for central bank after an outcry of officials owning, individual securities. CNBC found Powell owned municipal bonds of the same type bought by the Fed during the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020. Two regional Fed presidents likewise own assets of the same type the Fed was buying as the coronavirus threatened the US economy's health. The central bank's code of conduct says officials should be careful to avoid any dealings or other conduct that might convey even an appearance of conflict between their personal interest, the interest of the system, and the interests and the public interest. So, pretty damning. I won't go through the whole article here. It's not a massive article, but I won't go through the whole one. But to kind of see that the money that we are dealing with here, Powell had 1.25 and 2.5 million of municipal bonds. So that is over 3.75 million in municipal bonds that he has, which were the same types of bonds that the Fed was buying in 2020. Now, this is a small proportion of his total assets. And these bonds were purchased in 2019 and they were held while the Fed last year bought more than 5 billion in munis, including one from the state of Illinois purchased by his family trust in 2016. So looks like a bit of a conflict interest there for me. Maybe he knew what he was going to do in buying them and that's why he picked those This is, not allowed in normal circumstances. In private companies, they have very strict rules on this, but this is public, and yet they're allowed to get away with it. Boston Fed President Eric Rosengreen held between 150,000 and 800,000 in real estate investment trusts that owned mortgage-backed securities. He made 37 separate trades in the 4 REITs, while the Fed purchased almost 700 billion in MBS. Pretty good trade for Mr. Rosengreen. And finally, Richmond Fed President Thomas Barkin held $1.5 to $3 million in individual corporate bonds purchased before 2020. They include the bonds of Pepsi, Home Depot, and Eli Lilly. The Fed last year opened a corporate bond buying facility that purchased 46.5 billion in corporate bonds. So there is basically a summary of what had happened and the type of assets that these guys own, and yet very similar in line with what the Fed is doing in purchasing these. So I'm sure they've done very well out of the moves that were made in 2020. So these guys are making money hand over fist during the pandemic, as a lot of rich people are, and this is sort of the question: should the Fed ban officials from holding and buying and selling the same assets? If the Fed was buying them last year, when it was dramatically widened, the types of assets were purchased to the pandemic, and all they're saying is, oh, it might even convey a conflict of interest between personal interest. I'm sure if you have almost 3 million in a certain type of bonds, is that not in the back of your mind when you're trying to make decisions on what to do and when to do it? So yeah, we can't be sure that these guys are not making decisions that only help them. You know, I'm sure that's happened before and it'll continue happening, but it just kind of shows that it's outright in your face at this point that they only care for their personal interests. Right, guys, please give a like on the video if you enjoyed it, comment down below, and I will catch you guys next time.